Good evening and a warm welcome to all of our new Blue Jays and family members who are here today. Thank you so much for joining our town hall. My name is Emily Calderon and I oversee parent and family programming as well as new student orientation and the first year experience. We know that this is a very exciting time and also a stressful time as you are preparing to launch your student at Hopkins. These webinars are just one way that we share information. We also use email, the hub, a daily JHU publication, and newsletters for both students and families. For instance, this past Friday, we sent an update to our community on water testing and remediation related to Legionella bacteria in 2 of our residence halls. We sent an email to AMR 2 and 3 residents, published a corresponding hub story, and then promoted that story in the all family newsletter today in an effort to inform as many of our community as we could. We encourage you to engage with various communication and to continue to participate in these webinars moving forward. Our hope tonight is that this webinar gives you a sense of what your student can expect in terms of academics, wellness, and arrival to campus. Before I turn it over to our guests this evening, I'd like to share some ground rules as well as details of what to expect. We recognize there are likely many questions among our audience regarding the impact of COVID-19 on the new student transition experience. To allow us to focus our conversation, please put any questions into the question feature on the town hall chat. As for the format of the webinar, we will hear briefly from each of our panelists, then have a moderated Q&A discussion. You are welcome to begin submitting your questions now and throughout the session. We will try to get through as many questions as possible today, but we may not be able to answer all of them. However, we are still able to answer any and all questions, and you can do so by emailing bluejfamilies@jhu.edu. At this moment, I'd like to introduce Dr. Michael Falk, who is the Vice Dean for Undergraduate Education in the Whiting School of Engineering. Michael?
Thank you, Emily. It's my pleasure to be here this evening, and thank you for tuning in. We really do appreciate the engagement of all the families who support our students through this transition, which is a big transition. It always makes me think back to when I started as a Hopkins undergraduate back in the prehistoric days of 1986. I was a student in the Krieger School, although I now teach in the Whiting School of Engineering. I was majoring in physics. I actually stayed an extra year, did a master's in computer science. I did research with a faculty member. I ended up co-authoring a paper. I went on to do PhD study. But many of the things I think back of about my college days are all the other things that went on outside of the academics, the great friends I made, the working with human rights groups like Amnesty International, being active in Spring Fair, doing work for the Space Telescope and for the Bloomberg School of Public Health to pay for some of the incidentals of college life, and falling in love with Baltimore. And so I hope your students get to experience that full range of the Hopkins experience, because I think it's a good deal of what made me who I am today. So, of course, when we're thinking about this semester, it's different than many other semesters. We're very much thinking about it in terms of the COVID context. Of course, we're very happy that with the great miracle, scientific miracle of the vaccine, we have the potential to have an in-person academic experience. Last semester, I think, we all missed the chance to congregate in person together for classes. But I think, what that year helped us realize is that while we think about college as dorms and quads and classrooms and dining halls, it's really more about growth and relationships and ideas and becoming who we want to be in the future. And I think that'll help carry us up through this year as well, which, we're likely to have to think creatively about how we adjust ourselves as the year unfolds. I just wanted to spend a little time reflecting on what the academics mean at Hopkins and what are the underpinnings of academic success for a Hopkins student. We had at one point asked a bunch of faculty to try to come together and sort of distill what we're trying to do here down to just a few words. And it's kind of hokey, but I'm going to give you the words. So they came down to deep knowledge, boundless innovation, and noble purpose. And I think that really captures in a lot of ways what we are hoping your students get, that we want to make sure they have the foundation, a strong foundation to build on in their future lives and careers, that they think about how to take what we know and turn it into what we don't know yet or don't know how to do yet, and that they know the context in which their actions will have consequences for the world. So the last thing I want to touch on is just, what advice would I give to students just starting on this grand adventure? And the things that I always like to emphasize when meeting with my advisees for the first time is to really think about how to avoid things like an overemphasis on grades, right? I mean, we tend to be very focused in our academics on what the GPA is, but really at the end of the day, you may end up learning more from the class you struggled in than from the class you ended up gliding through. It's really the knowledge you take with you that's the benefit of an education. Also, I think students have a lot of habits from their high school years, which don't always serve them well in college. We're going to be working as faculty to challenge students to their limits of their ability, but to provide all the supports they need to succeed in doing that. And so that means when we give a homework assignment in a 3-credit class, our expectation is that that's going to take 6 hours of real work, So students have to think about starting assignments early where maybe they didn't have to in high school. They have to realize that they can't really go it alone. We're assigning work that we expect them to need to interact with their faculty member, with their peers in order to succeed at. So avoiding isolation and working with peers and taking advantage of office hours are really critical. And to really focus on their learning, to make sure their learning is the focus of their experience. I think I'm going to leave it at that for now. There'll be time to ask questions, and I look forward to answering those questions. So I'm going to hand it back to Emily. Thanks, Emily.
Michael, thank you so much. We're so glad you were able to join us this evening. At this moment, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Erin Rowe. She is the Vice Dean for Undergraduate Education in the Krieger Arts and Sciences School, and she will speak about the academic experience in that school. Erin?
Hi, thank you very much, Emily. I just want to join Dr. Falk in wishing you, all of you watching and joining us here in the town hall, such a warm welcome to Hopkins. And I hope that your week and the coming weeks are going really well in spite of the rain this week and having to do this event virtual. It's a really exciting time. And like Dr. Falk, of course it makes me think about my experience going off to college. And I grew up in a small town and went to a small liberal arts college. And I had actually a very different experience from what Dr. Falk described, because as opposed to, learning so much outside the classroom, which of course I did, but I grew up in it. I went to school in an environment where the academics were not particularly emphasized. And then when I got to college, this was a time of incredible curiosity and exploration and discovery, really. And I think those 3 things, curiosity, excitement, exploration, discovery, these things are at the core of the Krieger School mission for our students. This is really what we want our students to get out of their experience. Some students arrive knowing exactly what they want to do, and they follow that path. And that's wonderful. That's really important to have a vision for yourself. And many students come and they don't know, they're not sure. They just want to explore. And both of those paths and all the paths in between are wonderful choices and ways to be. We hope no matter which path your student takes, that they all retain that sense of curiosity, of excitement. And as Dr. Falk was saying, the experience of being uncomfortable, the experience of being not sure, the experience of not doing well, actually, which can be an extraordinarily helpful, go to a class where you don't know what's going on and you don't understand the context and you feel uncertain. And those are areas of extraordinary growth. And that's what we try to promote. And we would like our students to explore widely and in an interdisciplinary fashion, which is how our faculty think and how they teach, and what we hope for our students. And as part of that, I think it's important to emphasize that even though that crucial to our academic mission is this idea of the student in a holistic sense, kind of the whole student, meaning that our experience at university, of course, is very concentrated or very centered on the idea of your academics and your academic education, but that there are these very complicated parts of that experience. Going to college is intellectual, absolutely, but it is also emotional, and it is psychological, and it puts you in a different physical space. And so it involves all of these very complicated aspects that we don't always think about until we get here. And that is something that we at Johns Hopkins really understand, that your student will unfold. And we have a really wide array of services to help your student navigate the complexity of this experience from all of these different angles. And just from the academic side of it, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions from a representative from academic advising, Dean Martin. But I should just say, we have an extraordinary staff of academic advisors who are here to support our students, in addition to all of the other support systems we have, whether it's, peer-led study groups or, life design coaches. We have so many services that are set here to help your students provide a smooth transition. And, and as part of that, no matter what this is a very uncertain moment, I think, for a lot of us starting this school year. We don't know exactly what this semester is going to bring. But what I would like to just underscore for everyone is the commitment of the Johns Hopkins team to facilitating as smooth a process humanly possible for our students going through these unprecedented times, that we have, thought through different potential scenarios, and we have an extraordinary team of people that are here to make everything as excellent as humanly possible. So I'm so glad that you all here are part of this conversation, and I look forward to the question and answer. Thanks.
Next up, I would like to introduce Allison Avolio, who is serving as the Interim Dean of Student Life in Homewood Student Affairs. Allison?
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our new Jays and our new Blue Jay families. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Again, my name is Allison Avolio. I serve as the Interim Dean of Student Life here on the Homewood campus. And I'm a representative this evening of our Student Affairs Division. And, I can't stress this enough, Homewood will be your home once you arrive, or your students' home once they arrive. And while we do have, the ongoing pandemic to impact some maybe typical student experiences on campus, our teams are poised to support you and your families as you navigate your return to campus and to Baltimore as a new place to live. Briefly, Student Affairs, we are grounded in strengthening the value of your education outside of the classroom. You may have chosen Hopkins for the academics, and we are thrilled for that. And similar to how both Michael and Erin have spoken already tonight, it is some of the outside surrounding pieces of the college experience that we feel will really shape your experience. And that's where we lie. We lie in making sure that there are aspirations for your students from our perspective as well. We aspire for your students to find and gain skills in responsible leadership, in self-awareness, in curiosity, in collaboration, and even building confidence in themselves as they become young adults during their time here. So our division spans everything from housing and residential life and scheduling and events and programs, but also things that really enrich the student experience, like our Center for Student Success, our FLY initiatives, our outreach and support units, as well as the creative arts, diversity and inclusion efforts and initiatives. We have a lot to offer, and we really are here to nurture their inclusion to campus and find spaces where our students can feel like they belong, because they do belong here. We want to transform our students from the folks that they are upon arrival to a global citizen, to a meaningful opportunity for students to connect with our alumni and all of their peers, faculty, staff, etc. There is a cadre of folks here ready to support your student from day one. And we are all gearing up in our matching polos for move-in weekend this weekend, and are looking forward to seeing very many of you, and hope to be able to show in full force what we are prepared to do to make your student feel welcome here. So thank you for having us, and I along with some of my peers will be around for the Q&A, and we look forward to answering your questions. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you so much, Allison. Lastly, I'd like to introduce Dr. Roanna Kessler, who is the Chief Medical Director, and also in charge of student health and well-being. Roanna?
Hi, thanks, Emily. Welcome, everyone. And I feel like my colleagues have had a lot of very inspirational and aspirational things to say, and now I'm going to get super practical and logistical about everything. But just to give you kind of a high-level overview of some of the things we have in place to take care of your students when they're on campus, the Student Health and Wellness Center is there to act as your student's primary care home where, on campus. So we can do all the things your regular primary care doctor can do. We can do routine preventive visits, and then we can do sick and urgent visits. And with COVID, we've, particularly taken on a kind of bigger role in the university in terms of also operating the symptomatic COVID testing tent, which we have located right across the street from our main clinic. So if your student does become ill when they're on campus, we're able to test them for COVID. We're also able to see them for in-person visits if needed, as we've developed a special clinic that takes extra precautions in terms of infection control. So we can actually even see your students in person if they do get COVID. We have also developed a system for quarantine and isolation. The students who need isolation housing, we have rooms reserved at the Colonnade Hotel for them. And so they will be assigned a dedicated COVID case manager who will assist them in that process. And then we can also, our nurses will check in with them by phone daily, and we can also do like house visits if needed. We do have nurses that are working for the Johns Hopkins COVID call center. That's a main number that any student, faculty, or staff can call if they have concerns about COVID. And then they will be connected either to testing or to other resources, depending on what they need. The best place to go for all of sort of the logistical COVID information is covidinfo.jhu.edu. I look at it all the time. It has a lot of information on it, including like FAQs. And I really find that most folks' questions are answered by going to that website. So again, that's covidinfo.jhu.edu. And as I'm sure you are all aware, this year we have a mandatory requirement for the flu vaccine and for the COVID vaccine. Of course, there can be exceptions if folks have a medical reason or a religious reason to request an exception. We have a system to review those and approve them if warranted. And so that's just one of the things we have in place as a preventive measure. The other preventive measure, of course, is masking, which we are going back to masking fully indoors. And then we also have asymptomatic testing in place. So for our residential students, regardless of vaccination status, they're all going to test once a week using a saliva test. And then for folks who are not vaccinated, that's students, faculty, or staff, they are all going to test twice a week through the asymptomatic testing. So we have that in place, and it was extremely successful last semester in terms of identifying and being able to quickly act and quarantine and isolate the folks who needed it. But as you all know, this is a very rapidly evolving situation. And so we will continue, to modify our safety protocols based on what's going on in the community and in the country at large. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions. Back to you, Emily.
Roanna, thank you so much. I'd like to turn now to our question and answer portion of this evening. And I'd like to, based on how the questions are coming in through the chat feature, I'd actually like to group the questions into several different topic headings. And so first, I'd like to start with some of the academic questions. So I'll ask my academic colleagues to join me on camera. And I'd like to share with you some of the questions and see what the answers would be for our families and students that are watching. So first up, we have a question about what can students expect in terms of academics this fall? I know this is a large, broad question, but I do think it's good for students who are coming in to the first year experience. What can they expect? What should they be primed to experience in the classroom?
So I can take a shot at that, Emily. I think students are going to experience, I think, to a large extent, what students always experience at Hopkins, which is that, they'll be coming together with their peers who are all incredibly intelligent young men and women, and they'll be engaged by the faculty. They'll be challenged to do work that's really cutting edge, I think, preparing them for the various disciplines that we are studying here. And I think, they'll find that we have a lot of opportunities for them to gather in community. Even if students are enrolled in classes that are larger, that have had to be moved online, many of those classes will still have small section meetings where students can engage directly with peers and instructors. And many students will have access to things like pilot support groups where they can come together with peers to work on problems and hone their skills. So I think even though we'll have some limitations due to COVID, they'll find a very engaging academic experience.
I guess I could just add on to what Michael said and just affirm everything that he said. And it depends, of course, if what types of classes that the students are taking, but the vast majority of them are going to be regular in-person classes. There are no social distancing requirements right now, so the masking requirement, of course, is on. But otherwise, it will be, with the exception of wearing masks in the vast majority of cases, very similar to the feeling of other semesters, as opposed to last year, which was, of course, had a much different rhythm. This year, we're here, we're in person, we're masked, but the faculty are ready to go. And as Michael said, it's really important that even those big classes that have had to move online do have those in-person sections. So we will always have, because that kind of in-person conversation is so crucial to the educational experience. And we did a great job last year when everything had to be remote. Our faculty did an amazing job, but we're all really happy to be back in the classroom and to have that sense of kind of intellectual community back again.
Thank you both so much. One of the questions that has come in is, how can students develop relationships with faculty members? And I'm wondering if you have any tips and tricks about that.
Absolutely. There are many different ways that you can go about making connections or having, figuring out how to create faculty mentorship. And this often happens a little bit later in one's academic career through, opportunities to engage in research as an undergraduate with a faculty member, which is one of the main ways that students start developing these relationships. And when we talk about that kind of, particularly undergraduate research with faculty, often students think about the STEM classes where you can work in a professor's lab, for example. We also have lots of research opportunities in the social sciences and humanities, which also tend to be, in general, much smaller classes. So where you're in a class that has fewer than 20 students, you're able to develop a relationship with the professor, kind of in a ways that you can't in a bigger class. And so there are ways of creating informal relationships. For example, go to your faculty members' office hours. The office hours exist so that your faculty can meet you. You don't even have to have a reason per se to go. Just go and introduce yourself. I've had students come and do that, and I love it. I love it when they come and introduce themselves to me. You can make that connection. Even though I tend to teach small classes, I still love it when they come in and introduce themselves. So don't be shy about going to your faculty members' office hours, because that can be a really great way of just getting to know them better and start kind of establishing those connections.
Thank you so much. A question now around students who may be on wait lists for classes that they were really hoping to get into. What kind of advice or what would you tell them about being on wait lists for classes?
I guess first I would begin by just acknowledging their disappointment, because if this is a class that a student had identified early on that they really wanted and they didn't get it, you kind of need to take a minute and think about what was it about that class that I really wanted? Are there other classes that will fulfill that same desire, that same need? Is that class offered at another time that I might get it, a future semester? Might this open a door? Erin talked about, exploring and curiosity. Maybe the best thing that could ever happen to you is that you don't get a class that you thought you wanted, and you take something else that becomes, truly a different passion. Like, you a door closed and you jumped through a window. I don't know how many cliches I can throw out here right now, but just move. I would say I'll talk about waitlist in a minute, the technical aspect, but sort of how to get your mind around not getting a class that you wanted is where I wanted to go first. So just, keep in mind, it is likely to be offered another time. Is there another class that would, again, serve a similar purpose, get you to explore an area that you aren't as familiar with? There are so many academic areas at a university that are not present in a high school and secondary school setting. Try something new. I thought I was going to take French in college. I didn't get my French class. I took Latin instead, and I just thought that was fabulous. So I had 3 years of college Latin. Never would have done it if I had taken French like I thought I was going to. So I think that's just sort of how to think about a class when you're not in it. Certainly talk to your advisor. Both Krieger and Whiting academic advisors are fully up and vested in talking to incoming students right now about this sort of thing. And just keep in mind, there's always an alternative. I would say that not getting a class that you really want in your first semester, it's not a deal breaker. It will not cause you not to graduate. So it's very hard to mess up in the first semester by not getting something. Even for an engineer who needs to stay in sequence, we are going to make sure that you're in a proper math class, that your sequencing of kind of mandatory things is not interfered with. But I don't know, keep your mind open, explore, and just be curious. There's so many things to be curious about. So certainly take that sort of like psychological tack towards not getting a class you want. think of something else to want. The waitlist process is sort of like the technical piece of this answer. Our registrar's office website does have pretty robust instructions about what it means to be on a wait list, and some limitations and time spans and things like that. So you can be on up to 3 wait lists at a time. You can be enrolled in a course and also on a wait list for a preferred section of that course, if you wish. You will be notified by email. So if you or your student, if this is a family member listening, is on a wait list, they are going to have to stay on top of their email, because if a seat opens up, they will get an email from the system saying this seat is opened up, you have 48 hours to accept it. And then the default is if in that time frame you don't accept it, you lose it and they move to the next person on the wait list. And you don't get back in line with where you dropped off if you take a look at your message 72 hours later. The wait list is, I don't know, it's like a conveyor belt. Can anybody think of the Lucy and Ethel chocolate episode where the chocolates keep going? Well, this is like the wait list keeps moving and the next student keeps advancing. So if you're on a wait list, do pay attention. And also, if you're on a wait list and you decide you don't want that class anymore, really be courteous. You know, this is your community. These are your people. Take yourself off the wait list so that 48 hours are not spent waiting for you to reply to something that you've already decided you don't want. So pay attention to your email. If you're on a wait list, there is a time limit after which your offer will expire. As we get closer to classes, the time shrinks from 48 hours to 24 hours. That's so that we can kind of move things along a little more quickly in time for classes to begin. And if you no longer want to be in a wait list, step out of line so that the next person advances a little more promptly. So those are just sort of two sides of a response to that question.
Janet, thank you. I know that's been top of mind for many students in their first go around with registration, so I appreciate that. I'd like to also ask, this is a topic that has come up about academic support resources for students, both in the beginning of the semester and then as the semester continues on. If someone could speak to that on the academic side, please.
I can speak to that. So we offer three main academic support programs. We have Pilot, which is really like a loose acronym for peer-led team learning. And we offer pilot sessions for courses that are STEM focused. So we have them for math and chemistry and physics. And basically the gist of the program is we have upper class students who have taken the course and gotten an A, and they act as facilitators for groups of 6 to 10 students who meet one night a week for an hour and a half to go through problem sets and work together to solve problems related to the course. Some of the benefits of Pilot are, there's definite academic benefits, and a lot of students do them, like almost all of the students sign up for at least one pilot session. So it's wildly popular, but it's also just a really great way to meet other students in a small class setting. So a lot of these large freshman STEM focused classes are have hundreds of students in them. And so these are going to be online, the lecture portion of it. But even when you go into the classroom in a large lecture hall, it's kind of hard to meet other people when you're just one student in this large classroom. So it's really actually had so many social benefits in this program. And we've learned that students are meeting each other and kind of getting some informal mentorship from their pilot leader, who's an upperclassman. So that's one program. Registration for math sections started on this Monday, August 16th. The pilot sessions for math are required, so they're really an embedded part of the course. And pilot for all other courses will begin on the first day of classes, August 30th. And the first pilot session takes place in the second week of classes. We also have drop-in help rooms for some of the same types of STEM focused classes. So they're quantitative classes where students might need help with their homework. They can just drop into sessions. We have them for econ. We have one for neuroscience. So some expansion a little bit from pilot, but we also have them for math. We will be hosting these drop-in sessions online just to increase our accessibility to all students. So sometimes it's a lot easier to just log in and get some help with your homework while you're in your dorm room than traveling across campus and trying to figure out where the drop-in is. So we're hoping that we get more traffic with it being online this fall. And we also offer personalized tutoring for students who have demonstrated that they need the extra support in the course. So it's not open to everyone, but your advisor or your faculty member can refer you for personalized or individual tutoring. If you feel like you have, you weren't as prepared as you should be in this particular subject coming into college. So you don't have to demonstrate failure before you do it, but you have to demonstrate a need, either in preparation or if you did take your first quiz or test, or maybe you went to the help room and just didn't feel like you were getting the kind of help that you need. You can talk to your academic advisor who will refer you to personalized tutoring. And the final program that we offer is called study consulting. And with study consulting, I like to call it our non-content specific support. And you're paired, underclassmen are paired with upperclassmen who, really serve as a peer mentor to help with non-subject specific assistance, like time management, how to read a college textbook. Do you read everything? Do you write everything down? How to take notes, test prep tips, things like that. Also a very popular program, another way to kind of meet an upper class student and get a little bit of mentorship and personal connection from student to student for incoming students. One thing that I do want to point out also is we have an early warning system in place where faculty members are, at different times in the semester, usually within the first, 3 or 4 weeks after exams have been done, or we've established a pattern after the drop add period, and we've established a pattern of who's in the class and who is doing well and who needs some assistance. Faculty members will report students to the academic advising office who might need some extra support. So that's one way that we can identify students who are struggling. And then what we do is we call them in to meetings and we say, hey, we heard from your faculty member that maybe you didn't do as well as you would have liked on your first test. Did you know that we have all of these resources available? And that's one way that we connect students to some of these programs that we have. We also have a mandatory advising program. So every student will meet with a faculty advisor or their first year advisor in Krieger. And sometimes the first question is just, hey, how's it going? And, depending on the student's answer, we refer them to different academic support resources. And I'll just end by saying our academic support programs are highly utilized. It's a normalized thing to do pilot or to get a tutor or to have a study consultant. And that's something that I think is unique about Hopkins. It's not like, oh my gosh, you need help because you can't do the work. It's everyone is doing this to be the best person that they can be. So anything you can do to encourage your student to connect would be great.
Jessie, thank you so much. I have another question that's come in that I think is really interesting. And actually, I'd like to ask it in 2 parts. The first is, what advice would you have for an engineering major who has limited space for electives based on the rigor of the course schedule, but really wants to explore the arts at Hopkins? And my second follow-up to that actually is for the folks in the Krieger School, is for students who are interested in a pre-health track that also has a more rigorous set of classes. how would they find time for electives that might be interesting for them to explore some things? So if we could start with the engineering answer to that question, I think that would be fabulous.
Well, I guess I can speak a little bit as the engineer, but probably I'll lean a little bit on my friends in student affairs as well. So, I think many of our engineers are very involved in arts pursuits. And in fact, we have a good number of joint engineering Peabody students each year who are also studying classical music of some sort or other, jazz or dance or things like that. So, I think students who are engaged in music already, we have a campus orchestra. They can take lessons down at Peabody. I think Baltimore itself is a very culturally rich city. And so I think taking advantage of our museums, is something one can do on one's own time as a way non-academically to continue to engage with the arts. And, there are always so many talks going on campus. You don't have to be engaged in a class. You could just open up your web browser and figure out when are they having seminars over in French or Africana studies or whatever your interest happens to be, and see brilliant people talking about whatever subject is of interest to you. So the curriculum is rich and not necessarily tied to courses.
I wanted to say maybe a couple more things too. There are many arts classes that do contribute to the pursuit of an engineering degree. All of our students need to complete about 15% of their degree in humanities and social sciences. And many of those arts classes carry what we call a humanities designator. So don't think of arts pursuit as necessarily extra. It's outside of your major area, but it could very well still be contributing to a graduation requirement. We are also a member of something called the it's called BSEP, Baltimore Schools Exchange Program. So some of our students take advantage of that. The Maryland Institute College of Art, which is right down the street from our campus, is one of the schools that's part of that. We offer our own arts classes, photography, drawing, cartooning, things like that. Both during the semester and during intersession, which is a brief program in January where you can get exposure to different things. And then I think where Michael was going with our student affairs folks was that there are lots of student organizations around the performing arts, the visual arts and things like that. So I don't know if Allison is still here and wants to say anything about that.
I surely can, Janet. Thank you. Just briefly to share that we have over 400 student organizations, but specifically around the arts, we have a large amount as well, performing in lots of different ways and mediums. So just a quick plug, we will do a virtual student involvement fair at the end of the first week of class. And then towards the end of September, we will work together to have more meaningful in-person connections with students, with returning students and student organizations. So lots to come in September for those types of engagement.
We'll also add that, a lot of our students are double majors. That's not unusual. And when you have double majors, we see a lot of double majors that will cross kind of the STEM with humanities, for example. So, I could see, I'm a historian, so I could see a history double major, or neuroclassics double major, or a chemistry, philosophy double major. We have lots of ways that students expand some of their intellectual interests beyond that, especially if they're involved in a STEM focused major. They can often do reach out to the humanities and social sciences. And I love when people ask, particularly about pre-health, because, and I this is my own personal prejudice, I guess, but I'm always telling it, sharing with people, there is really robust data that med schools are looking for humanities majors. So there are lots of ways that that we consider these kind of intellectual enterprises as being kind of hand in hand. They work together really well. And we have lots of students that explore them in lots of really complicated ways. So in addition to student organizations exploring the city, can also do that kind of integration through a more, if I can put it this way, a more conventional path. We also have different kinds of courses. So like, for example, one of the types of courses that we offer are called SOL courses. This is in Krieger, where they're 1 credit, 12-week courses embedded within the semester that are our version of pass fail, where that gives you the opportunity to just test the water in anything that you want. So you could take a SOL class to learn about theater, or to learn about how to code in Python, whatever it is that you didn't know that you were interested in until you saw an advertisement for it, and you can just go for it. So there are lots of kind of big ways, small ways, formal ways, informal ways that students can take advantage of the richness and the diversity of the intellectual offerings here.
Erin, your description of SOL classes is making me want to take them, and I don't think they're open to staff members. Unfortunately, they sound so interesting. Michael, Janet, Jesse, and Erin, thank you so much. I'd like to pivot at this point to answering some of the health and wellness questions that have come in with our health and wellness colleagues that are on this webinar with us tonight. So the first question I'd like to ask for Roanna and Jackie, we've gotten a lot of questions that are very technical around students having questions on not only health insurance, but also the different formats that we push out health and wellness information to students. What is the best resource if a student is having trouble with, say, MyChart or uploading their vaccination information, to reach out and ask for assistance?
So I'll take part of that, and then maybe Jackie can talk more to the communication piece. But in terms of resources, again, I would direct folks to that covidinfo.jhu.edu, because that will have all of the information about who to contact for MyChart, who to contact for uploading your vaccine, who to contact for Prudensity. So I would just use that as your hub to find all of those different resources that you're looking for. And then you said there was a specific, insurance. So in terms of insurance, if you are on your parents' insurance, and that is a good health plan that can be used in the state of Maryland, you are allowed to waive out of the student health plan, unless you're an international student, and then we require our international students to have the student health plan. Regardless of your insurance, you can come to the health center and your visit will be free. There's no charge for visits at the health center. It's included as part of your tuition. So you can come to the health center, see a provider, there will be no charge. The only time your insurance might get charged is if we prescribe you a medication, or if we order a lab or an x-ray or something like that. And then you would give that other place, the pharmacy, the radiology center, you would give that place your insurance information and they would bill you. So the student health center is not going to bill you. In terms of, what was the other question, Emily? I'm sorry.
No, you hit them all. Actually, those are all of the answers to the question. That's perfect.
Perfect.
I was just going to say one quick thing about communications about well-being. Hi, everyone. I'm Jackie Stone. I'm the Director of Student Wellbeing. So I do health education and health promotion in partnership with Dr. Kessler, with our counseling center and our student disability services. We have a staff member on campus whose sole job is well-being communications. And so if you go to wellness.jhu.edu, it is a portal for all well-being plus resources. And so you can search by topical area, you can search by a term. If you're interested in learning things about healthy relationships, you can just put that in the search box. And it is a really great tool. There is an email associated with that as well, wellness@jhu.edu. And we get questions all the time that we either connect with the Student Health and Wellness Center or the appropriate campus resource to make sure that we're getting the most up-to-date answers on a variety of things about who can access what, when, maybe a password isn't working. We can help you with that. So it's a great starting point in addition to the Blue Jay family email as well. We have a really robust blog on that website as well. We've published over 100 blogs in just the last year, focused on really holistic health and well-being topics, from race intersecting with well-being to how to have a healthy friendship. And so absolutely check out those spaces. And we do communicate through our vice provost for health and well-being, as well as we have a very robust Instagram at JHU Wellness that pushes out tons of programs, events, opportunities to win stuff, a Meatless Monday competition. So really great ways to connect with well-being in those spaces.
Jackie and Roanna, thank you so much. I'd like to conclude with a few questions that we've gotten around what campus life is like, and asking our colleagues in both student development and then in auxiliary services to come online so we can talk a little bit about that. Roger, a question has come in about where can students and family members find information about the dimensions, lofting, et cetera, for the room that their student may be moving into, as well as what they can expect when they arrive for move-in.
Sure, I'm happy to answer those. So I think the best thing I would tell you is to go to our website. And the best way to get there is to Google JHU Community Living. When you find that website, you'll see the Housing Operations webpage, and there's a link for building information. And on that link, every single one of our residence halls are listed with some pictures, descriptions of what the buildings are like, what type of living it is, included amenities, and some floor plans of our typical rooms or suites or apartments in those specific buildings. Unfortunately, I wouldn't want to give you a specific room size dimension, because to be honest, we really have a broad array of room sizes. What I would tell you is to, and this is advice I take from my own experience of going to college, be cautious with how much stuff you choose to bring, I think is what I would tell you. I would also say, make sure that you're connecting with your roommate and having a conversation about who's bringing what, because that will really help you in the space saver conversation about how much to bring, what can fit in the room, et cetera. But those floor plans will give you a really good idea of what a typical space will look like across our inventory. As far as what to expect when you arrive, all students who are coming to move in this weekend have received an email from the housing office that talks about a long and good list of what to look forward to. So some highlights from those things, of course, is the first expectation is all students will go through the testing process that Roanna talked about a little bit earlier. We are testing upon arrival to campus for all students who live in the residence halls. And then if a vaccination is needed to be given, then we'll do that as well right on scene. Once that's completed, the student will be able to pick up their residence hall keys and then head right over to their residence hall and get themselves moved in. We have, I will call it, a small army of staff and students that are waiting to greet you with all kinds of excitement and cheer that will bring you to the front of your residence hall, help you get unloaded, get your stuff inside the room, and then be able to begin really your Hopkins experience on the Homewood campus. I just cannot tell you how excited we are to see you all this coming weekend at our major move-in days.
Roger, there's been another question that's come in, and it's one that's near and dear to my heart, but can you give us a brief overview on what dining will look like?
Sure, happy to, Emily. So I think this is one of the places where we're really excited to get students back on campus, because dining in many ways we think is at the heart of community. One of the challenges that we have, of course, is that there are still some public health guidelines that we're following around our residential, really all of our dining facilities. And the main thing I would point out there is that we do have de-densified seating in all of our locations, right? So on our residential side, FFC, which is where our first year students will eat a lot of meals, and then Nolan's, located in Charles Commons, are two main residential locations, and they will have de-densified seating. But there's students will be able to come in, enjoy their meals, We'll have grab and go options across every option that we have on campus. So there is an opportunity for seating, but it is de-densified, it is spaced out, and we will have grab and go there. But I can promise you the menus will be awesome, the food will be great, and there will be a great time in that world. We also have a variety of retail operations where students on meal plans can use their dining dollars at. The Charles Street Market is one of the most common ones for our students, also located right at Woolman Hall, right on Charles Street, and then Levering Hall in the Levering Kitchen, excuse me, and Levering Cafe in Levering Hall there for our students. We're also adding a couple of new venues this year. We're excited to add a venue in the rec center, a little cafe spot, and then in Gilman Hall, we're bringing in a new vendor there as well. So there's lots of experiences for students in the dining realm. I think one of the other things that I would share for you that's part of our health guidance is we are restricting access to our residential locations. Again, that's Nolan's and FFC to meal plan holders only. And again, that's part of our public health guidelines that we're following, but we do expect a great dining experience on campus this year for our students.
Roger, thank you. I'd like to wrap up with a question that has come in, and I think is one that all of us feel very strongly about on this webinar, and that's specifically, Allison, if you have suggestions on how a student can get involved on campus and really find the clubs and organizations and really the people that they are looking for once they arrive and then throughout their time at Hopkins.
Sure thing, Emily. And I think this is fitting that I came after the dining question. My office is located, I have a window looking out at the Fresh Food Cafe patio, and I've watched students gather to eat meals together almost all day. So the first thing I just want to share is that I feel strongly, as do my peers, that students are going to be so excited to see other students that we are hopeful that just organically being here will provide opportunity for folks to meet new friends and have those connections and say, hey, let's go to this thing together. We're out here anyway. So we're hoping for a lot of organic, relationship building. However, wanted to bring attention to a platform that we use online called Hopkins Groups. It is a platform where all of our student organizations use to share their events that are happening at any given time. A lot of our departments do the same on that platform. So, it is a place where you can log on and see what's happening on any given day, any given time. RSVP right on the spot. Some of those things are even streamed live on that site as well for some virtual options. But there really is something for everyone. For an institution our size, having 400 plus student organizations is a little unheard of, but we're proud of it in a lot of ways because it means that our students have a lot of diverse interests, hobbies, passions, etc. So, we will do a good job of making sure that you're connected. And if we have a lot of student leadership in place for arrival to campus, so a team of first-year mentors that Emily oversees and a team of RAs that our teams over in Res Life oversee are 2 peer leaders that you'll meet almost immediately. And those are great connectors. That's exactly what we use to explain who they are and what they do is that they are connectors, they are mentors, and they are advisors. They can connect students with similar interests to just have a meal together versus let me tell you about this student organization. A lot to offer, and we will spend the first 6 weeks of the semester trying to put on as many programs as we can, both virtually and in person, with the correct guidance and event management that we can to ensure that there are lots of opportunities for outdoor gathering as well as kind of informal relationship building in our residence halls and beyond. So I encourage you all to check out Hopkins Groups. You can do so as a family member as well, but a student logging in will get to see much more, and we'll share all of that with you when you arrive here on campus.
Allison, thank you so much. I want to first thank all of our speakers and panelists tonight. I know that your time is very precious, and we're so grateful for you to join our Hopkins community and are welcoming our new Blue Jays and Blue Jay families both to campus in the next week or so. Again, I just want to reiterate, we are very excited to welcome you to campus later this week and want to share in our excitement for your arrival. We know that this can be a time of high anxiety for families who are leaving their students possibly for the first time. This will be hard at moments, we know this, but please remember to take care of yourself and your student and to let us know how we can support both of you. This is not the last time you will interact with us. We are always here for you and we welcome your outreach, your questions, your comments, and your feedback. We want to remind you that you will be allowed to help your student move into the residence halls next week. You will be required to be masked in the residence halls, but we are allowing family members inside the residence halls. We also hope that you'll return to us on October 15th through the 17th for Family Weekend, with details about the exact schedule to follow shortly. Again, I want to encourage you not to hesitate to reach out if you have further information, clarification, or would like to connect around anything you have heard this evening or in the past few months during our robust family onboarding. Please be well and safe travels to campus. We look forward to seeing you soon.